Kayla is the first product marketer to inform me what a product marketer is. Like, sit me down and explain it. And then she handed me her book, The Mehdeeka Method, a book all about establishing product marketing within an organization. And I think this is important because not enough people know what a product marketer is, what they do, or why they're important. And I wanted Kayla on the show so we can share that knowledge. Because, hey, you might be a product marketer and not know it. And it's a pleasure to have you, Kayla. Good to see you.
Good to see you, and thanks for having me on.
Of course. You're not the first product marketer I've met, but you're the first product marketer that, like I said, sat me down and went,
Made a
right,
difference.
this is who we are. This is what we do. You're a leading advocate for product marketing in Australia. From previous conversations with you and ones that I've had with other product marketers, is product marketing a little bit of a gray area in Australia? It sort of feels like it's more of a term that's more well-renowned in the States.
Yeah, I would say it's new even in the States. In Australia, 5 years ago is when it started getting the attention of non-product marketers. And then in the States, it probably has been around for a decade, particularly in the SaaS sphere. So B2B software, it does exist in consumer products, physical products. One of the classic things that software has adopted is the term packaging. Your free tier, your pro tier, your whatever tier. And that comes from like actual physical packaging for groceries and things like that. So it's not a new concept, but it got a bit of a facelift.
Really want to dig into some of that. But even still, I think it's still a bit of a gray one, even to marketers themselves. And I'd like to understand and clear up some misconceptions about the role. Somewhere in this conversation, I really want to dig into, in particular, how important the role actually is in proving product market fit.
Yeah.
I want to get into that. Don't say anything yet.
Okay.
On that. Let's start by defining it first. So we started off, talking about, kind of where it kind of came from. Do you want to dig into that a little bit more, the origin and how it came
Lowdown.
about?
I can't say too much to the origin. It's something that if you don't have a product marketer in your company, that doesn't mean that product marketing is not happening. So it's something that's always been around. It just may not have been one specific person doing the job. To me, product marketing is, if you cut the ing off of marketing, it's the product and the market and how you bring those two things together. So I like to think of a product marketer as the buddy in the buddy system to the product. So depending on what life cycle stage the product is at, whether that is concept, research, it doesn't actually exist yet, you're trying to figure out what to build, through to launch, maintenance, new features coming out, relaunches, renames, extra stuff being tacked onto it, all the way through to sunsetting a product and taking it off the market. You are with that product throughout its life, or for as long as you're, assigned to that product. And at each point along that life cycle, you are supposed to be the person who is whatever the product needs you to be. Launch, jobs to be done are very different to sunset. Jobs to be done is different to research, jobs to be done. So you are a bit of a chameleon and you change along the life cycle of a product. And I think that's where a lot of people don't understand what a product marketer does, because it depends on the company, depends on the product, depends on where that product is and its like build cycle, depends on the skill sets already present in the company. So if you already have, a pricing expert, maybe your product marketer isn't responsible for pricing, but they are responsible for something else. So all the things that a product marketer does has always existed. It's just been dispersed between multiple people. And now it's been allocated, to someone who's got targets, who's got KPIs, who's been performance reviewed against that role. And so there's more accountability for it.
But let's define what product means, because I remember that also when referring to a product, it doesn't necessarily mean a physical, here you go, or a buy this and you get a free version or a $10 version subscription. Product can also mean,
so anything that you can sell is a product. If also anything that people get for free is also a product. So whether that is services, I work as a consultant, so my product is my services. It could be a physical product, your groceries. It could be a software product, which is what a lot of B2B people work with. It could be an event. It could be a series of events. could be literally anything where you're trying to get someone else to become a customer. And I think that's where a lot of people realize or don't realize that product marketing is for every type of business.
With that in mind, if product can basically mean anything in any industry for the same reason all the time, being we are trying to get people interested and to eventually buy what it is that we're selling, irrespective of what it is, could that also be a reason why product marketing is still a bit of a gray area? Because if you strip that right back, at the end of the day, you've got product
Yeah.
marketers everywhere, but we're just not calling them product marketers. They are just marketers at different stages, no?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with the concept of every product marketer is a marketer or every marketer is a product marketer. There are product marketing people who come from non-marketing backgrounds. They could be a product background, they could be a customer success background, they could be a sales background. Like, it doesn't really matter. Product marketing is much more about the soft skills, and really it comes down to understanding the customer, doing research, empathy, messaging, like being able to explain what the value of something is. And that's not strictly a marketing skill set that no other team has. And I like, part of what I advocate for is that anyone who's interested in that kind of work can become a product marketer. You don't have to be from a product marketing background. I'm not from a product marketing background. I was just a generalist marketer. And I just had a look at what parts of the general marketing stuff I was doing that most interested me. And that's what led me to product marketing. So yeah, it's anything for anyone, but also depends on the company, depends on the product. And
Sure.
even between quite experienced product marketers, there's disagreement about what product marketing is. And I think people get really hung up on the word should. It should be this, it should be that. In reality, product marketing changes as your product grows or matures. What you do day to day is going to mature with it. So there's no point in time where you can take a slice and be like, that is product marketing and nothing else is.
Okay. So what you're saying is you don't think that there will be a time where you can ever clearly define specifically
You
black
could
and white.
define priorities for certain stages. So,
Mm.
during launch, what are the priorities? Those priorities at launch are not the priorities during maintenance. It's it's a life cycle. It moves, it's dynamic, it changes, but the same can be said for any job.
So let's try this then. Company X has one product. It's one thing. It's like a picture snipping tool, and that's it. That's all they have, right? They don't do events. They don't sell services. It is just that snipping tool. And it only has one tier. It costs $10 a month, right? So in that very, very small scenario, you could argue to have a head of sales, a head of marketing, and then a product marketer, maybe a brand manager. In that particular scenario where it's just one product, one tier, the product marketer is looking at that one product and that one tier and going, okay, let's look at the sales cycle of this tool and let's analyze how we need to market this product at all the different stages of the buyer's journey.
That could be one thing. So shortening the sales cycle is often a product marketing KPI because you have the insights of the market. You should be focused on objection handling, sales stuff, equipping like, this is actually one of the biggest points of contention in product marketing is people get stuck on the sales enablement. And like, most of my time is spent on sales enablement. I'm actually not against it. I really enjoy it. There are a lot of product marketers who say, reducing product marketing down to just sales enablement is doing it a disservice. I don't really think so. If you're employed and you're getting your paycheck and you're doing your job, who gives a shit? But there's a lot of other possibilities in that scenario that you gave. So it could be our snipping tool is being used by this subset of the market. How do we reach other subsets?
Okay.
We
So
only
exploratory
Yep.
innovation. So same
Research. Yep.
product. We know it works. Use case for this vertical. How do we make it work for other verticals, or how do we make it desirable for other verticals? Okay.
Yeah. It could be verticals. It could be geographies. How do we expand
Geography.
into new markets?
Okay.
It could be after listening to a bunch of sales calls, I've noticed that customers are using it in a way that we didn't expect them to. So now there's this new use case that we can go and market and attract new customers that way. It could be research into pain points. Like, what is it that actually like fundamentally causes people to look for this solution? How do we speak to that so that we can get more efficient customer acquisition, more cost efficient, more time efficient, whatever it is. And then it could be actually our usage is declining. How do we increase usage? So it's not even about new customers, but how do we get the same customer to use the tool twice a day instead of once a day, or once a week instead of once a month? Like, you can go deep into the product side of it, the usage, new features, things like that. It could be so many things.
So it's actually quite granular, and we're operating off the assumption that it is one product, one price, one tool, and ultimately one type of customer. And from that scenario and from that example, you've gone into the granularity of it as to, okay, how can we make this better? How can we make it more useful? How can we, still keeping within one tool, one price? That's when different tiering of pricing then starts to come out of the woodwork, et cetera, et cetera. In that
Potentially.
potentially in that scenario, though, let's be clear that that is unlikely to happen, because what you would generally tend to have is one person in marketing that is responsible for all that thinking, but also everything else that goes into being a head of marketing, a chief marketing officer, etc. If you only had one marketer, right?
Yeah.
Coming up with the creative, coming up with, doing all the other things that are
Managing the ad spend, doing the
managing the ad
campaigns.
spend, yeah,
Yeah.
branding, da, 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 da. So, okay, so in that particular scenario, that's where a product marketer could sit.
Yeah.
Let's put us in a different scenario. Company Y, right? 10 different products with 10 different verticals and 5 different price points
So that's where it
across
gets
the product suite.
really interesting, because there's so many ways to slice and dice that. So I was working in-house as a head of product marketing, and when I got my first, so I was the founding product marketer. I set up the function, and then it was like, okay, things are running. Now that we have processes and system, let's add one extra product marketer. And so it was like, okay, we have one product that serves 5 industries, and the use case and the tweaks to the product are quite specific. We also have different geographies. They all have different price points because they're priced specific to the industry. And so, like, the first question I had was, what job do I give this person? Like, how do I decide what parts to offload onto them and what parts not to offload? And so what we ended up deciding on was verticals. So you would be solely responsible for all parts of product marketing within a vertical. You had to know the product inside out, you had to know the pricing, you had to know all the geographies that product was used in, you had to understand that vertical deeply, and that worked for us. Like, that was a good solution. But I could have just as equally chosen, nope, you're going to do all the products in this geography, and you're going to go deep on the geography and broad on the verticals.
And what did you do with the other verticals?
So we added, after that decision was made, the roadmap was we would continue adding product marketers until each vertical had one product marketer per vertical. We had one product that had different applications, so industries would use it differently, but it was the same core product. And then within that vertical would have its own pricing. So it could have 3 tiers of pricing. Some of them, I
Right.
think, had 4.
Mhm.
And so one product marketer would need to know the industry, the product as a whole, like all aspects of the product, and then 3 or 4 price points and all the geographies. So you'd be globally responsible for that product.
Sure. Okay. And so to what end, though? To ultimately understand it, know it, manage it, but then also spot opportunities for growth and innovation?
Yeah. So because product marketing was such a new function for that business, our time was majority spent on sales enablement, marketing enablement, and working with the product team to actually ensure that what was being said about the product was true. So a lot of the times it was a very complicated product. It was very, very technical. And so the sales team are not necessarily technical people, and they would go out to these sales calls, and they would be, working with industries where the customer that they're speaking to also might not be technical, but they have the problem. They know about the problem really well, and we're trying to say, like, this software will solve your problem. And so the customer might say, oh, okay, that sounds really good. Can it also do XYZ?
Mm.
And your salesperson trying to make a sale, of course, says yes. The product cannot do that. Like, they don't know. And so our first priority was internal education on what the product actually did. And this is actually like the opening story in my book. But when I first joined, I had a salesperson. The first project I worked on was the pricing. And the salesperson said to me, like, basically, who the fuck do you think you are? I've been trying to solve this for 2 years and you've come in and you've, like, I was given like 3 months to do this. This is like, from day one of being employed, within 3 months, you have to understand all this and you need to come up with pricing. And so I was presenting my hypothesis for what the pricing was going to be. And this person just singled me out in this call of like 20 people and like the leadership team, basically being like, who do you think you are? This is so ridiculous. And then like 6 months later, I basically never initiated contact with them after that interaction. And like 6 months later, they sent me an unprompted message that was like, because of you and the work that you've done, I actually understand what we do for the first time. And I have worked here for like 5 or 6 years. So that internal education piece was, we wouldn't have been able to do any other type of product marketing if we didn't solve that problem first. And I think that's why I get so hung up on this, like, oh, product marketers shouldn't be doing sales enablement, because it's like, okay, but if the sales enablement isn't in place, everything else you try to do isn't going to land.
It is a fantastic story, but it is a fantastic story because that happened, I dare suggest, not because you're a product marketer, but because of who you are as a product marketer, right? So let's just make that clear. I would suggest taking your tenacity and your approach out of the equation. Product marketers might hear that and think, well, why would I want to put up with that kind of conversation?
And that's valid. Like,
And
I'm a big advocate for, if you don't feel valued at work, get a new job. And I understand that that's a privileged thing to say in the job market we're in. But what is the alternative? Stay and be unhappy, and that's your choice. But that is your choice. You can find other jobs. You can go back to retail. Like, if you truly are unhappy in your job, the only person who can make you happy is yourself. And that's just it's unfortunately a very hard truth of life. And I've been through it as well, so I know.
if we continued down that thread, I think we'd get wildly off topic. So to bring it to bring it back, product marketing enabled head of sales within an organization with a complex product and a complex solution, where salespeople were saying, whatever they wanted to say to make a sale, to actually clearing that up. But is that a role of the product marketer? Is that, and should that not be the role of business leaders?
I think that's where what I was saying before about product marketing has always existed. Yes, at one point in time, that was, if you are in a company where your founder made the product, for example, it is up to them to tell everyone else what it is that they've made. But as you get more complex, your founder building the product is no longer the best use of their time. The CEO talking to individual salespeople to be like, okay, what is it that you don't understand, is not the best use of their time. And that's where all of those little fragmented pieces, you put it into one role, which is product marketer. And then they are held accountable to make sure that those things get done. When it is scattered between so many people and it's scattered between leadership who have competing priorities and things like that, those little touch points and that sort of, okay, let's sit down and tell me everything it is about our product that confuses you or you don't understand. Let's actually go through it line item by line item and let me clear this up for you. You're not going to get that from your CEO. You're not going to get that from your sales lead. You're not going to get that from your head of product, because they have other things to be doing. And while this is important, it is not as important as getting fundraising, sorting out the product has crashed. They've got to go fix that. Like, this is where, you build your to-do list, and then if you've got 25 things on the list, 20 of those things don't happen, not because they're not important, but because the top 5 things are more important. So yeah, you're basically putting that list of 20 things that didn't get done into someone, and you're saying, this list of 20 things is your only job. Go do them.
There are probably some people listening to this that are thinking, that sounds like the shit that I have to deal with, or that sounds like something that I really get excited about. But I didn't realize that's a product marketer's job. I don't have product marketing in my title. So how often do marketers realize they should be product marketers?
Probably less often than they should. There is currently, at least like for Australia, there is a high demand for product marketers. And I have been in that hiring manager position where I'm looking desperately for product marketers. And I knew that there weren't going to be a lot of people who would have the job title product marketing already on their
Yeah,
resume.
right. As like a past experience or
Yeah,
even their current. Yeah.
because the role is growing, right? There's more roles than there are product marketers, which obviously means you need to fill some of those empty roles with people where this is their first product marketing job title. It doesn't mean that they can't do the job. What I found people really struggled with, and I think this is one of the questions I get like asked the most, is how do I tailor my resume for product marketing? And I would say like you need to look at the job you're currently doing and you need to selectively pull out the things that most resemble product marketing and cut everything else out. Even if your job is, paid media and your resume currently is like, I manage $1 million in spend across all these channels. Unfortunately, that's an achievement if you're going for a paid media role. It's not really an achievement if you're going for a product marketing role. But I would be looking at, did you A/B test value proposition versus jobs to be done in your ads? Like, were you running experiments? Were you using feedback on the comments of the ads that people left? Were you talking to the product team to ask which feature should be in the ads? Like, that's product marketing is way more soft skills and collaboration focused than it is managing budget, managing people. Well, it kind of is managing people, but they don't report to you, right? It's managing personalities. It's managing up to get leadership time. It's all sorts of things.
A marketer within an organization is there to be the consumer champion. They are meant to be that bridge between the people you are selling to and the thing that you're actually fucking making, right?
Yeah.
And a way to be able to bring the two together so that you are able to empower sales with, here are some people that are interested in the thing that we've built, right? The interesting thing that I'm hearing in your definition of product marketer is that product marketers are actually even closer at the coalface to the customer end. They are at the front line, understanding those customer interactions, those prospect interactions, especially in B2B, but then also having to literally take that information and go speak to the other person in the other department to impact that change.
Yeah, I would say they're not necessarily at the coal face, but they are watching the coal face through CCTV at all times. So, yes, product marketers should be interviewing customers, but you should also be listening to sales calls. You should also be asking your social media team or whoever is running your social media what the sentiment is, what the comments are saying, what posts are getting good interaction on organic. You should be sourcing multiple things, and unfortunately if you did that face to face, you wouldn't have time to do anything else because there are so many channels to be getting that through. But your product marketer is the person who's spotting the patterns amongst all of those things and then saying, hey, this keyword has come up a lot lately. And that keyword might be a topic, it might be a pain point, it might be a outcome that people are looking to achieve. And then you go to the marketing team, you say, okay, this is the current trend. We need to make sure that this is being represented in our marketing materials. Then you go to sales and you say, okay, this is the current trend that people are asking about. Here's how to answer the questions. Then you go to product and you say, okay, product, this is the current trend. Can we make a feature for this? Or can we address this in some way or use existing stuff? Then you go to customer success and you say, okay, this is the current trend. If you get complaints, this is the part of the product that addresses this. This is the part that doesn't address this. Here's a workaround. And then you've gone full circle.
It is the granularity of the role, I think, is what sets it aside.
It is. You're across a lot of things.
My favorite question that I had lined up for you today is around product market fit. I am a marketer, but also a co-founder of a technology business. One of the things that has stuck with me throughout this process and something that I will never forget moving forward, irrespective of if I start another business or what have you, is the need to prove, but also maintain product market fit. As far as I'm concerned, there is nothing else that is required. Whatever you're selling, whoever you want to buy it, there needs to be alignment. There needs to be a fit with what
enough people are willing to pay enough money for you to run an actual business.
You actually just need to create something that people actually fucking want.
Yeah. And are willing to pay for.
So product market fit for me has been one of the biggest learning curves. Not from a customer perspective, but most importantly from an investor side of things.
Yeah.
Right? Talk to me about an example where product marketers and product market fit is a thing?
So I worked with an early stage founder who was super nice, had built a really cool product, like genuinely very interesting. There was a lot of interest in it because from a technical standpoint, it was genuinely new and novel, and it was solving what seemed like a pretty big pain point. However, all of these conversations that they were having from a sales perspective were like, oh, yeah, that looks sick. I'm so interested in this. And then when it was like, okay, would you pay for it? The answer was unanimously no. And so obviously that's a product market fit problem. And after doing some research and doing some customer interviews and market research, I had basically gone back to them and said, I think that there might be a market for this, but it is not the customer that you initially thought it might be. So you were going to go after, persona A. I don't think persona A will buy, but I think this persona B potentially will buy if you pursue them. You're going to have to experiment and see if they respond or not. But I think that's a valid path forward. I do think you should give up on persona A. You're like, all the effort you're putting into persona A is wasted effort that's preventing you from getting to product market fit. They kind of doubled down on persona A and was like, no, I know what I feel. I know who wants it. I know where it will make the most value. About a year later, they were still trying to go for persona A, and then all of a sudden I saw they started promoting for persona B. And I was like, okay, finally taking that advice. I don't know how it went. I don't speak to them currently, but it was just interesting to see that, yeah, eventually they got there, and I think they had to go on their own journey to come to that conclusion. But yeah, product marketing also can help with how the market changes. So just because you have product market fit on, I don't know what's today's date, doesn't mean that you'll have product market fit on the 23rd. It could change, and that's because the market could change, your customers could change, your product could, either you could get a new competitor, you could release a new part of your product which is unproven, and it might change the dynamic of your core product. You might lose part of your product, you might sunset part of your product, and that changes the dynamic. So every time there's a change, either in the product or in the market, once you get past a certain size, this is not really a problem, but you will have to reconsider product market fit.
The reason why it's so interesting, but also relevant to the audience of this podcast, is when you speak to some, if not most, business leaders, in particular marketers that have more of a business facing role as well, so more senior marketers, you hear that business leaders, what they want from marketers is growth. I agree. And I agree with that, right? It's not all just advertising and just throwing messages out there and hoping for the best. You actually need to grow the business as a function, as a marketer. And what I find fascinating about product marketing, being able to prove product market fit, and the big realization for me is something that I would like to impart on marketers that might not be thinking about this, is that your business leaders will thank you if you can not only help them find, but maintain product market fit. And if that means that you're a product marketer when you're doing that, in a job market where things have gotten grim, that's potentially an area that could have some longevity over and above others. Any thoughts on that?
The more collaborative you are as an individual, regardless of what your job position is, and the more that you focus on, this is such a cliche, but don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. The more that you actually do that, the more people want to work with you, not necessarily for anything other than your personality. So if you are helpful, if you are proactive, if you are not held down by the challenges, but you can instead be like, yes, this is a challenge, but we will find a way through it. That mindset gets you jobs. And people who you worked with in the past will take you with them. Or something I hear from some of my old bosses is like, the moment I have the chance to poach you, I will. And it's like, I don't even know what the business is. I don't even know if there's a job there, but like whatever it is that my future has, I know that if you are in my team, things will be okay. And you won't be a problem for me.
I've got a couple of rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
What is one resource, book, blog, podcast, talk that fundamentally changed the way you work or live?
I have one, but I've forgotten what it is. Basically, it's kind of on that line of be a good person to work with. The more that you are helpful, the more people will help you. In terms of product marketing, there are 2 books I always recommend. Mine is the third, but one is called Listen Like You Mean It. It's written by a UX researcher, and it's about conducting interviews and listening to what they're actually telling you. And then there's another one, which I've forgotten the name of it. I think it's called Talk to Me by Dean something. He's a journalist, and he does the other side of that, which is about asking better questions. And so that's an excellent skill set for any product marketer. But they both also, I love that both of those books talk about how those skills make you a better friend as well, and make you better in your interpersonal relationships in your private life.
If you could give only one piece of advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
Be collaborative. Like, don't be afraid to ask dumb questions, and don't be afraid to be submissive in some instances. I think there's a lot of, oh, well, why do we always have to be the ones who give in and grovel to sales and stuff? And it's like, sometimes you do just need to suck it up for the greater good.
Who are the influencers that you follow in the marketing space?
Ooh.
Aside from Axel Sukianto.
I was gonna say Axel. I gotta say the Generate community. I genuinely look up to so many people in there, and I think like something I've done with my newsletter is and for the programming of Generate Summit is I'm looking for marketers who are not necessarily CMOs of brands that I recognize, but are in the weeds, doing the job, doing really good at what they do, but they're just, they're not necessarily a big famous person.
What's something that excites you about B2B today?
I think we're allowing a lot more personality to come through. There's a lot of brands that are still very hesitant, but, slowly the brands are getting more exciting. The jokes are getting funnier. It's a bit looser.
Quick plug for Generate and shout out to Axel.
Shout out to Axel, Lara, and Kaylee. So Generate Summit is a community for B2B marketers based in Australia and New Zealand. It's one of the most genuinely helpful resources I've ever had in my career. So I joined it just as a regular member, and now I help organize it. We all do it voluntarily because we've just gotten so much out of the community ourselves.
And lastly, give us a plug on your newsletter.
Yeah, so Mehdeeka, it's on Substack. It's weekly in seasons. It's about to go on break, actually. So every week, I kind of just write about one deep dive topic. Usually it's whatever I'm working on that week. So it can be anything from email marketing to product marketing to should I make this brand more corporate? Should I make it more startup? It's literally just whatever I'm working on, which spans a lot of the topics.
Building in public, right?
Building in public, yeah.
In public. Kayla, so good to see you. Thanks for joining me. Did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun. Always fun with you.